we discuss and seek a change in long-term athletic development. My name is Ben Wellenbach, and I am the dad of two girls, strength coach and owner of Be Well Fitness. It is my desire to help educate and shift the way our current culture operates regarding long-term athletic development. And I thought it would be fun to combine my love of Nike sneakers with each guest that is interviewed. I will pair each guest with a sneaker from the Nike Connect collection that best represents them. So today we are fortunate enough to have two great guests joining us, and no coincidence, both are paired with the same shoe, but in different colorways. In 2005, Nike started to enter the barefoot running and training shoe market. There was clear evidence of the benefits of barefoot training, just like proper long-term athletic development. And at the time, there were not that many players in the space. And the ones that were did not have the style to fit the technology. The concept was good, but the look was more like Kramer and Jimmy in the Jump Strength shoes rather than Cool Tony from Seinfeld. My two guests today are seeking to take many principles that have been around for decades surrounding long-term athletic development and bring the Cool Tony out in them, which is why I chose the Nike Free 3.0 version 3. For Coach Dose, I went with the colorway closest to College of the Canyon's Black, Blue Glow, and Volt. And for Coach Will, I went with University Red to represent his red team level of coaching at his company, 1 Kilo. I was first exposed to Coach Dose in '09 at a Perform Better Summit where he delivered Building Better Athletes. His title was the exact ethos and slogan for my Academy Youth Development Program. Seemed too coincidental. Each year after, I would always see him lecture topics like program design made easy, power evolution, chaos sports speed training, and designing optimal athletic performance training programs. All of the lectures were based on real-world evidence that was applied to various age groups and experience levels. It was pure long-term athletic development. A few years later, after being exposed to Coach Doze, I was pointed in the direction of IYCA, International Youth Conditioning Association, from Pat Rigsby and Ryan Ketchum, which was my first introduction to Coach Will. Will was working with various age and experience levels, and I was very inspired by his content. He clearly had a passion for coaching and development, not only for his athletes, but also for himself as he competed and still competes himself. That passion has only increased over the years. So coaches, welcome, and thank you very much for taking the time to share some lessons learned for long-term athletic development.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
I know, it's nice. Do we get the pair of shoes? Is that going to happen?
I would love it. I am telling you, I would love it because it's one of my favorite Nike Free versions. I think actually, Dose, you have a pair of these, and I think so, Will, you do as well.
So this is a Nike Free 3.0?
Yeah, Nike Free 3.0 version 3, V3.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I think you guys do.
Yes. Yeah.
It almost.
I remember these.
Yes. And I hate to almost sound stalkerish, but I think you guys do.
I don't have a picture of them up, but I have a feeling I have some. Did they make them in like wacky colors?
Yeah, they came in a bunch of different colorways. It was when they were basically trying to, do the 3.0 drop, the 4.0, the 5.0 drop in the actual shoe. And
I think they were like when you were doing Nike training, those are like the shoes that you guys would wear typically.
Oh, I'm wondering if those are the ones we even had the peep. Oh yeah. Yes, we would have them for the actual participant.
Yeah. They're like socks on your feet. They were awesome. But I typically will start the podcast by asking like people's own experiences growing up in sports and activities, but I really just want to jump in with you guys and fire away because, following what you have posted on social media, you know, basically, how do we fix sports was a video you filmed, Will, recently, speaking about how 70% of kids quit by 13. The costs associated with the issues with coaching, parents, and organization. So your proposal was one league, one sign up, all sports. So I would love if you and then Coach Dose, if you want to expand on this, I would love to be able to kind of get
Yeah.
some more info.
Okay, so this goes way back with IYCA. You mentioned that was I've always thought that there's and Dose and I have connected on this tons. Is there's just like we treat kids like little grown-ups, right? And a lot of our issues end up being because we treat them like little grown-ups. We train them like little grown-ups. We do all this stuff, and we value things that are important when you're a grown-up. It's like, I want to be very good at this one thing, and then we push kids to be very good at one thing. And so going way back, that's like kind of the genesis. But the league idea is just this idea of how to fix youth sports, where Tom House made a tweet 5 years ago, and Tom House was what Tom Brady's quarterback coach, quarterback guru, but he was also a baseball pitcher for the Braves, and he caught Hank Aaron's 715th home run. He was in the bullpen that day, and he caught it out there. But he just said, why wouldn't you just have one league that taught kids every sport, And so that just has like kind of gnawed at me. So I've worked a bunch on it locally, trying to get this off the ground, which is that idea is just like you would sign, and there's a lot of problems you're answering. It's not just, I'll talk about the kid problem on the parent side, being a parent of 3 young boys. You have this anxiety about missing a sign up. You're like, oh, basketball season starts today, but I got to sign up for we signed up for baseball in December, but we're still playing basketball. And the good league already filled up, so you got to play in the not so good league. And then you show up, and the coaching's really subpar at the rec level, where it's like just whatever dad or mom is like willing to volunteer. So good on them, but then they don't have to be anything. They don't have to know anything. They just maybe said they could do it. A lot of times the prerequisite is you played at some point in your life, but that's not even a prerequisite. So you don't know what you're going to sign up for. You're missing signups. They're all across town. You might be starting baseball season, but I had a kid last night miss baseball practice because he's got basketball practice because he's in basketball second season. And then you and that's just rec ball. If you get into travel, where it's like, oh, you just got to go. And then we start talking about the actual development of kids, and it's just skewed. It's screwed up, right? Like kids will play 6 games on a weekend with 1 practice during the week. And it's like, that's not how you get better at sports, And this is Dose's big point, but like travel sports isn't even the right answer. The only thing you're going to get with travel sports is maybe more exposure, but you're still signing up for, you don't know what you're signing up for. It's a travel team. I have a rec, I played rec league baseball, and half the kids on my team have a travel hat too. It's like, and half of those kids are no good. So it's like, travel's not better either. It's just like the answer right now is you got to play travel basketball, travel baseball, travel volleyball. So now you're, as a family, if on the family side, you split up every weekend to take all your kids to different tournaments and stuff like that. You play rec ball, and you might, you mess up the sign up dates and all that kind of stuff. So I just know that it's wrong. It's not the right way to do it. So families are terrible. And then if you talk about the actual development side of stuff, if you're playing 6 times on a weekend with 1 practice, that's not how you get better. So I just know that the current system is broken. So I just have I think there's a proposal on a way to make youth sports better, and it's make it simpler, focus on really good coaching, and that's education. Like, I'm big on education. So if you come in, you should, the coaches should all be educated. So they have to spend a little more time, so they have better practice, balance the practice to game scenario, right? And make it developmentally appropriate, right? And then include strength and conditioning, agility, all that kind of stuff. Because the other thing is, kids are just throwing the baseball 1,000 times a week or 1,000 times a day, and there's no strength and conditioning, there's no lower body. I have a friend's son had to like cut down from playing baseball for 6 weeks because his elbow is giving him trouble when he's 9. And it's like, well, it's because he's the weakest kid in the world. So he just throws it from his elbow, like maybe this kid should do some lunges or do a goblet, jump or something like that. He's like, all he does is throw the baseball. So it's just broken. I think there's so many things. Coach Dosa has a great point about, we go back to travel even. I'm kind of bouncing around. He talks about football, right? What's the point about travel that we like to make, Coach? There's no travel football, but yet
Thank
can still.
Thank God.
Yeah.
You couldn't. It's not feasible, right? And I always say, like, now there's a bunch of those, 7-on-7 camps and stuff and showcases. Where are the linemen? Right? Like little fat Dose is at the park with a tree playing block, right? Where do you I'm totally okay, and this kind of goes off again, but like even the Pop Warner thing, I think it's you're rolling the dice, right? You don't know what you're signing up for when you're signing up your 12-year-old to play tackle for the first time. 12, 8, 7, right? Some of these kids are playing tackle, when they're like bobbleheads, with those helmets, but you don't know what you're signing up for in terms of what are they getting taught. Are they fitting their helmets correctly? We have all these concerns. I think it was Pat Cullen Carroll, who was a longtime weightlifting coach, and he used to talk about this at performance, seminars and stuff. And he'd say, we have this huge concern about like injuring kids with weights in the weight room, but we have no problem, taking an 8-year-old, putting a helmet on them, putting a mouthpiece in their mouth, and then having, they look like an apple on a toothpick, and having them ram heads with another kid, and then we watch kids what they do.
Are their growth plates okay if they squat? Are their growth plates okay if they squat? But
right.
Football.
But don't worry about paralysis. We have these weird concerns, and also with football, and I'm obviously biased, but like with football, it's just one of those things where I'm totally okay with. I love flag football. Like I think it's awesome, and I think it teaches so many skills, and all the chaos, everything, all those things come into play. And then when they get to the high school level, this is when you learn. Like my girlfriend's son is going to play tag the first time. He'll be playing 8th grade, so they're practicing now, but no pads yet until this summer. And he's been playing flag this whole time. And he's developed really, really well. It's a pretty good quarterback, pretty good arm, pretty good, in terms of just his agility and stuff. But who knows what's going to happen, right? The first time he puts pads on, what's he going to get taught? And I told him, I said, the funniest thing, and we'll probably can attest to this too, when you're growing up, high school for the first time, you're like 9th grade or whatever, and you get into school and you put pads on for that first day. Then there's that weird kid that nobody ever talked to or whatever, and he's just kind of like never played sports before, and all of a sudden he's just like a meat stick out there, and he's just put his face and everything. You're like, whoa, what happened? This is, and I told Gavin, that's going to happen. You're going to see some kids pop out of nowhere. You're going to see these lineman kids pop out of nowhere, and they're going to develop. It's just, that's the beautiful thing about that. It's just, we're not trying to rush it. We're not planning on, travel and paying $10,000 a year for my, my 10-year-old to get in a showcase in volleyball. It's
really. You can play football as a freshman for the first time. I played for the first time, and 4 years later, I had Division I scholarship offers because I was pretty terrible for the first 2 years, and then I started lifting weights, and I got really good, right? But that's a really common story. You can play football for just that high school period and get really good, but yet we think that a baseball player has to be a specialized baseball player and play in showcases when they're 8 years old. It doesn't make it like. The reason is nobody's figured out how to monetize football at a young age, right? Like that's it. And we kind of have an inkling that maybe that wouldn't make sense,
right.
At this point. So I think that, there's a better model sitting out there for kids, that would be the concept that I've had that we've started having discussions is like you sign up and it's like, this is basketball season from January to March or something. and then you roll into baseball season, and then you could roll into flag football season and soccer season, and girls could play softball and volleyball, right? Or something, you could put some combination in there. And I also think that like there, our model, we would have tester sports where it's like, okay, this week and on Tuesday, instead of baseball practice, we're going to go to wrestling, right? And you're going to learn to wrestle because maybe you're a wrestler. And this week we're going to go learn to throw the javelin and the shot put. Okay, because maybe you're that. Give all these it's kind of late specialization sports. Give them a chance early so kids get their early introductions. And then the training component, right? Where it's like teach kids how to train early on and not just like how grown-ups train. Yeah, we'll like learn to squat and all that kind of and lunge and hinge and do cleans and stuff, but make it fun so that they have this great connection with the weight room. I'm sure, Jeremy Frisch is like, my idol in this sense. Is like, I wish I could go to his gym and like mess around, but it's like those kids like have a great time. And then he also, keep in mind, if you watch his videos, they're all squatting, they're all doing power cleans, they're doing power snatches, they're doing good looking RDLs and stuff like that, but also they're having a great time and like jumping and running and landing and doing all the stuff that we've taken out of kids stuff because they got to go to a baseball tournament this weekend instead of going to the park. We took my kids to the park last week, and this, I really promise I think it's baseball season. It was a nice day, and like nobody was there, like no one was at the park, and my wife like texted one of her friends like, hey, I hope to see you guys at the park. She said, oh, we had baseball after school, right? It's like and softball. It's like kids just go straight to sports and they don't mess around.
Yep. Yeah, I think one of the but let me just address Will's and Jeremy's videos. Like I've been watching those for years. Same thing with this fascination of, wow, that makes perfect sense. That play-based learning, play-based conditioning, just understanding your body. I think Will, when you posted that video, I think people understood that Jeremy has all those other components that he still like. There's a systematic approach that he has in teaching all the essential movement patterns and teaching them how to live correctly and stuff. So that's too that people are like, I don't want people to just think like, oh, that's all you need, just obstacle course, like,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
the Gymboree style, and just have them run into foam pits and stuff. But like, yeah, that's part of the process. But at the same time, there are things we need to do, building blocks in terms of like getting them ready, physically, developmental wise. So that's one of the things that I think people need to understand, even from that early age. There's a lot of things that we can do. And don't get me started on, Will brought up already, just the fact that these kids are just playing games, not even practicing so much. They're just playing a ton of games. They're throwing a ton. They're playing, they're on the court, hours and hours and hours on a weekend. And they have no answer to these injuries. So just, all right, rest. Like there's no prehab in a sense that there's no conditioning in general. Even conditioning, I think even just running more on the court, like would get them a little more bulletproof to things that are happening because they're just out of shape and they can't play that amount of time. So I'm like, just run them, coach, but that goes back to also, you don't know what you're getting. Even if you're on a ones team in volleyball, you don't know what that coaching staff's like. It could be a first year coach that's never coached before, and it happens all the time. And kids are paying thousands of dollars to learn from these coaches, and your trust is in those coaches, and that's what you get. So I think that those are the things that are problematic with the system. The other problem is just it's like the systems is very difficult because everybody's kid's the next star, right? My kid's different though, but my kid's different, right? Yeah. So that's going to keep such a moneymaker that Will, you said it. When you talked about like there's travel ball and there's kids on these teams that are just like, what are we doing here? We're paying for this kid to be like, this is crazy. Well, out here and most places that I know, say volleyball, you have a 14s team and you fill it up with good girls that are ones, and you have enough girls to make twos, enough girls to make threes. You might have 14 teams. Can you imagine what that looks like? Like the ones might be pretty good. The twos, now the threes, oh my God. So, but they're all paying. So they're going to keep filling those up. They could just plug in a coach here, have a coach do double duty, coach, be an assistant here, be a head coach here. So there's a lot of that. And it's just such a huge moneymaker. And especially with like volleyball, it's very expensive. So people will pay pay, you know, because they think that that's going to, you know, my kid's different. My kid's going to get the scholarship. I know you said it's a long shot, but my kids, we feel, you know, we have confidence in them.
Well, and then, okay, so I think a couple things. Ben, you didn't know, you might never ask another question. We're just going to keep going back and forth.
It's like one of our podcasts. Yeah.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. But, you know, think about the development there. The interest in travel ball is, I talk about baseball a lot because I see a lot of baseball culture and basketball culture here, but baseball in particular right now is that ring, right? They get those rings when they win a tournament, or when they get second, or when they get third, sometimes fourth, we even get a ring. But they get these rings, and that's the interest. It's not in anybody's development, right? I have, like, my rec team has some travel ball players who are good I actually think they're pretty good. But one, like, I was like, anybody want to try first base? And this one kid's like, me, right? And he's doing a great job. And I said, well, hey, do you play that in travel? He goes, no, I only play left field. That's where they put me. Right? It's like, he's 8. What do you mean you only play left? Like, we got to move you around, because what if you want to be a first baseman or a pitcher or whatever? Like, how do you know? Yeah. But they have a first baseman and they have a shortstop, and, like, so those kids play there, and the other kids play here, and probably, this kid may be on the second tier. I mean, he's very good, but he's second tier on the travel team, so he's an outfielder. Or he joined the team late, actually, I think might be the case. I think he's really good. He joined the team late, so he's an outfielder. But there's no development that happens if every day you show up to practice, you go to left field when you're 8. And then every day you go to a game, you play left field, and you get hit a couple balls. And, like, there's not time for a bunch of drill work. There's not time for all that kind of stuff. Like, my kids, my boys, take baseball lessons. They go to, like, individual instruction because you should develop skills, but, like, they get better through skill development, not through just, like, structured play. Now, if they had free play, if there was, like, a sandlot, they'll get better there too, because it's like, oh, today I'm pitching, guys, or today I'm catching, or whatever, because that's what you would do, if you got a group of kids together. But that doesn't exist, right? But that's like, basketball is probably the last sport that has free play, right? You go get a pickup game and you could just go shoot, or something like that. And I think that's why basketball is a popular sport, because you can just do it on your own. But, like, there's not skill development that happens in these travel sports. Skill development happens in individual sessions. And so parents then have to pay for a skill trainer and a travel team, right? And then get to travel out of town to play in a tournament, right? And it's like, what? I thought I was playing the sport to get better, not to, like, there's no development at the sport level. So that's another thing. It's like, I think that, like, you have to have more practice than games, and then the practices need to be skill development primarily, and then tactical stuff, right? But not just scrimmages and stuff like that. So I think that there's just so many ways we can improve youth sports.
Yeah, I agree. You guys have brought up a tremendous amount of points, and one thing that my next question would be, I've also had this, like, vision of what I would love to see. And part of the reason why I started this podcast was because I was really only controlling inside the 4 walls of my gym. And I would say, look, this is how, I want athletic development coached, like you're talking about, from just basic movement patterns. Like, can kids lunge? Can they hop? Can they, all of these things? But I think that, Will, like you said, there has to be an education process to this. And so my question is kind of twofold. One, do you see a curriculum that would essentially encompass these various sports, where you would say, okay, within the sport of baseball, we're gonna learn the basics of fielding a ball. We're gonna learn how to throw. We're gonna learn some, ins and outs of hitting. We're gonna, learn some, let's say, baseball IQ. Just some skill development. So that's kind of one. Do you foresee a curriculum being developed for not only the strength side, but the skill development? And then I guess in conjunction with that, my vision has always been to team up, by my love of Nike, but my vision has always been to team up with Nike and have, you know, their saying is, built to the exact specification of championship level athletes. That's what it says on their clothes, their shoes, and like I think they could be an impact player to help champion these leagues, like one league, all sports, kind of just do it.
Dose, you want to start?
Yeah, no, I think that it would take something like a Nike doing that, right? Don't you think? Well, like it would be like, because then it would be a thing like, oh, well, Nike's in it, right? Nike's for this kind of thing, because that's it's a really like it's this system is so steeped in the money and the parents and everything that's in it that it's just it's a hard cycle to break. It's going to be a real hard cycle to break. So in terms of like when we talk about, when Will and I have bounced back and forth about long-term athletic development stuff and just like physical development, we're trying to like just like band-aid the stuff. Like, how can we keep little Jimmy from getting that elbow issue at 12, right? And like getting surgery for, like, it's just a dumb shit ever. Sorry, but like so now we're like, what can we do? Because they're going to be playing the hell out of these kids, and they're going to be throwing out. So let's try to do something so we can help this kid survive this. Versus, let's kind of look at the system and look in how can we fix it. That's the hard part, because I just think there would be so much pushback in terms of just support from the people that are willing to pay and the people that want that ultra hardcore personalized pitching coach hitting, that kind of stuff,
like in the book Long-Term Athletic Development, it says one of the biggest implements or challenges for like facing this change is this us versus them mentality, because everybody's trying to one up the next. The school program sucks compared to the travel program. The travel program isn't providing the level of care. It's like there's no communal, one for all, everybody in.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple points in there is like, Dose, you're talking about the Band-Aid. It would be like if you just ate steak all the time, you'd probably have to take a multivitamin, right? Like, and right now what we do for kids in strength conditioning is a multivitamin. It's like, well, we got to get to it. I mean, if you're doing the right thing, you're giving them a multivitamin. You're saying like, okay, you just move one way all the time, and we're going to give you like other ways, right? Like we're going to give you a multivitamin that is going to kind of supplement your bad diet of only steak all the time, right? Like, so that's where we are right now. I think to make something like this happen, to like actually have change, like people, all these parents that are doing this, almost all of them, I'm sure there's some crummy ones, but all the parents that are just putting their kids in it, they want the best for their kids, right? They want their kid to be the best. Their kid has expressed that they want to be good at basketball. So they're like, well, this is the answer, right? So, or they say they want to be good at baseball. So they're going to buy them the best baseball equipment. They're going to get them the best trainer, whatever. And so the kids express this, or they want the best for their kid. They want the kid to get scholarship. They want them to make the pro, whatever. They want the best for their kids. So you have to get a voice, or you have to prove to them that this, right? And that's the thing. Like we have to, and so that could be, if locally it becomes the best because you got the best kids and you're producing, that's one way. Or you get the most influential parents. Like to me, I've reached out to my friends who played in the NFL or NBA, played in Major League Baseball, and like said, hey, would you get behind this? And absolutely, right? Those people locally lend their voices to it. If you get a Nike they lend their voice to it. It's big, right? We've talked about I have a friend who has some contacts with higher ups at professional sports organizations that are like interested in how their sport develops at the youth level. He said they totally get behind this. So yes, you have to have somebody or proof. You have to have someone saying it is, or proof that it's the best. Because the thing is, I don't fault any of these parents, right? Like some of them suck, but I don't fault them. Like they want the best. They like their kid said. I mean, when you have kids and your kid's like, I really like this. You're like, you do? Okay, here's here's more books. Like your kid likes to read. Oh, well, let me get you a book. Let's go to the library, right? Your kid says they want to play basketball. You want to shoot hoops, right? Oh, you want to get better at basketball? So this is all normal stuff, right? You just need a voice that's powerful enough, either locally or bigger, that says, yeah, this is the best. And then people will get behind something like that. So it could be Nike, but they'd have to get behind it. It could be the NBA saying, this is our official development model, where you play a bunch of different sports. I don't know if the incentive is there for either of those corporations to do it, but so I tend to focus locally because there is an incentive locally to do stuff like this, because you might see your friends once in a while. Like you might get to spend a weekend at home instead of at such and such at the La Quinta motel next to the big baseball diamond, right? So it's like, I think that there's incentive, and you could get people on board locally to make changes like this.
Yeah, I mean, my impression, because I've got two girls in the mix of travel sports myself, and look, I am absolutely part of the problem. Like I am not
Part of the system. You're not part of the problem, right? Like
fair enough, enough. But I almost see, so like Joe said, both my girls play volleyball, and we're at a point in like toward the end of the season where there are two national tournament events. There's one in Dallas through USA Volleyball, and then there's one in Orlando, which is AAU. And parents, I get the impression, they see it as a badge of honor if you're over traveling, if you're doing kind of these over the top, when really some of these teams, Dose, like you said, there are 4 teams at a 14s level. They have no business being at a national level competing. So yes, practice would absolutely weigh heavier than another tournament, especially thousands of more dollars just thrown at the system. So, I mean, I think it's going to take a major education, and like you said, finding someone or some organization with a very heavy influence to help shifting this curve in the other direction, because you're right, we're providing this multivitamin to a much bigger problem.
Yeah, and there's some good points there, because with volleyball, and that's obviously my experience with it, and I'm experiencing it now as well. But like, this is the vicious cycle, right? You pay all this money, you should be practicing more, but the parents want more tournaments. Well, I heard this other club, why aren't we playing in this tournament? Why aren't we going to Arizona for this one? Like they're going this year. We went last year. How come we not, and where's my money go? Like where's the money going now? Because now the travel stuff used to cover, the hotel room in Vegas and all this stuff and the travel for the kids. And now you got to get them there yourselves. And I got to see you like, but the price is the same. So there's all these different issues. But I think that once you attach that, it's the greatest scam. And we attach the word nationals onto it. And oh man, it's on. Yeah. My kids your kid, they're at nationals in Minneapolis right now. Oh, wow. They must be really good. No, they're not good. Like they're not good. Like the team is not good. So like, but this is how we are. And I whenever I go to these big tournaments and out here in Orange County, man, they're massive, right? So everything from out here has to travel about 100 miles, no matter what, every time. That's pretty much the closest thing you're going to get. You got to go down to Orange County, almost down to San Diego border. And I love doing math. I just sit in the corner and I just add up this club has this many teams, and this is how many people are here. This is how many courts are here. We just paid $25 to park. We just paid $25 to get in for each day. You know, a Coke is $12. Like, I'm doing all this math going, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in terms of just like money, right? But you think about all the kids in that room, and the vast majority of those parents think that their kid's gonna get the scholarship. And that's the carrot, right? That's the carrot we keep dangling. So that's the hardest, that's the thing to break. I'm going to do everything I can for my kid to get that carrot, right? So if it's personal if it's, you know, a personal coach, you know, somebody to help her volleyball skills, or, you know, that's just volleyball, you know. And while you guys were talking, because I just think it's always the funniest thing, I just went on and I just looked at, you know, the Little League World Series, right? 10 and 12 years old. And I'm like, oh, you know that there's been 60 players in the history of Little League World Series that have played in the major leagues. It's been around since 1946.
I know.
So we're saying, wait, like, little Jimmy's so special. All these little, oh my God, do you see these kids play, you know, from Japan? None of them are going to play in the major leagues. Like, so this is what we're chasing. And those kids are the best, right?
Yeah.
Those are the best teams in the world playing in this little World Series. It's like, if that doesn't put perspective on all these shenanigans, I don't know what will, you know, because talk about, you know, like, that's like just assuming I'm going to win the lotto. I bought a scratch winning, you know.
Yeah, I'm winning, baby.
I'm winning. I know it. This is it. This ticket's it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking at. The odds there are just monumental. It's diabolical. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even understand. But my kids friend though, so.
Yeah, my
But I digress. Now we go back to how can we? Parents are gonna put their kids in stuff. They're gonna play. They're gonna probably over activity those kids. Like, what can we do as strength and conditioning professionals?
Yes.
To educate, assist, to help them get better. If they're good, get them better. If they're not, you know, get them to a point where they can be competitive. And then just injuries, you know, like we'll talked about the 70%. The injury rates are pretty crazy when you just look through some of the statistics and any of the long-term athletic development articles that you would pull up. Like, it's pretty crazy, especially like the baseball stuff with the shoulders, and that's pretty alarming.
Every year earlier that a kid goes to a baseball showcase, like, is a substantial increase in his risk for Tommy John surgery later, right? So if you go at 9, you're more likely to get Tommy John than if you go at 10, or if you go, you're right. So it's like every year earlier is more risk. Well, of course, you know, like, I mean,
right.
You know, Eric talks about this all the time. He's like, if you can throw, we're going to find you, right? Like, if you can hit bombs, they're going to find you. Baseball has a substantial scouting department, and they find kids in the Dominican Republic who are playing locally in the Dominican Republic, not for the travel team, you know, like, because you can't travel that far in the Dominican, right? Like, they're going to find you if you can play. So practice, get stronger, right? What's one of the easiest ways to start hitting home runs? Get stronger, you know.
Barry Bonds.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, you know, like, it just enhances recovery, guys. That he could play more games, but like, you know, like train. We got to get kids training, and then training in different ways in what they compete. Because do you think a basketball player needs to do a bunch of plyos? No, they're jumping constantly, right? You know, they got to lift weights. They got to move in multiple planes with weight. You know, we got to prepare them for the stresses that they're going to have.
Yeah, we got to build especially for basketball, we got to build their brake system to better to better receive the force, since they're, you know, giving it so often. We are kind of running slim on time. I have potentially one last question, or we can wait until potential other episode. What are your feelings?
I can accept another question. You got time, Dose?
Yeah, we're good.
All right. So I would really like to get the perspective from, like, if you as coaches speaking to the athletes, because I think I would love to hear what advice you guys have for athletes who feel the need or the pressure, whether it's self-induced from parents, from other coaches, to be perfect. In other words, what advice do you have? Maybe almost from an athlete standpoint, but also like me as a parent, if I have one of my daughters come back from a game or a practice and they're just beating themselves up basically, it, how would you approach that?
Dose, you want to go first?
You go first. I want to hear what you say.
Well, I think that there's like, in perfectionism. So I'm getting my master's in sports psychology right now. So this is actually a pretty decent topic where they have this idea of like, some people would say perfectionism is two things. There's perfectionistic strivings, where it's like they have high standards and they have like self-critical evaluation. They could, they say, hey, I made a mistake there and stuff like that. And that it makes them want to work really hard. And that's usually like adaptive, like it's good, right? Whereas like perfectionistic concerns are maladaptive. So they're like fear producing, like if I screw up here, nobody's going to think I'm any good. I'm not going to get that scholarship. There's irrational concerns. And there's like self-depreciating evaluation, like I suck and stuff like that. So the first one is fine, right? Like I think we would all say like you want an athlete who like has high standards, doesn't mind taking the blame, does all these sorts of things and they're okay. But then how does it transition into maladaptive? So it's like paying attention to, the way they speak to themselves, if you hear them describing themselves, and like, and then, I depends on the age of the athlete, but a high school athlete, like they can understand that there's great books like Inner Game of Tennis, where there's like that really self-critical person 2 or whatever they call it. That's not okay, right? You need to be a good teammate to yourself, because there's no way you're going to keep playing. You're going like maladaptive perfectionism. That's going to lead to burnout. That you're going to quit. I don't think that, or you're a breakdown. Even if you're extremely talented, I think there's instances of like super great athletes who reach burnout later in life, where it's just like because they did it, but it's going to catch up to you if you have that maladaptive part. But where the like strivings, that's probably okay. I mean, I've always thought like I don't think you can be good without being critical of yourself, without wanting to do extra work, doing all those things.
Yeah, I think coach and myself coaching, for many years, within the strength and conditioning part, but be part of coaching staffs from all these different sports. For me, when I think about you want those kids that really want to get most out of themselves, for sure, right? And it's okay to be a little hard on yourself sometimes, but I just think as a coach, it's really important to reiterate, especially to the younger kids, that perfection, if you were to label something as perfect, to me it would be that kid who comes and works and has that work ethic and is a team person. And I think about this all the time, and I know it's also a little different, but around 2008 we had one of the best football teams in the country. We had a run there for a while, and our first string quarterback went down, and we all thought it was the end of the world. Then our second string quarterback comes in and just is a mate, right? He's just a role player. He's been there. I think it was maybe his third year there with us, redshirted, and this is just his second year playing. Would have never played. Now he goes down, so now we're screwed, right? The third guy comes. He's the best one. He's the best one. He's the best player we've had. I mean, one of the best quarterbacks we've ever had at the college to this day, and we would have never known. But he was one of the best individuals I've ever been around in terms of every day doing the right thing, being supportive. These are all team sports we're talking about here, right? So everybody there's going to be so many role players that are very vital to the success of that team, and you never know, right? You never know when you're going to get your numbers getting called. Now with travel and stuff, they're mandated to play a certain amount of plays or minutes or whatever in tournaments, stuff like that. But we already know how that goes, because sometimes you'll see that should be playing and they're not, and you're just like wondering what's going on, especially if somebody's having a hard day, like pull that kid, put the other kid in, and let's see what's, and it just, that goes back to, again, to my pet peeve with sometimes with coaching and understanding that and just the psychology of that whole, what that's doing to those kids. So, but in my mind, just that whole thing, you want the kid that's going to strive for that. You don't want the kid, I mean, you want to address that when it gets to the point where it starts to be detrimental, right? Where they're just so hard on themselves, and it becomes just this anxiety-ridden thing of having to be, perfect, and having a bad tournament that day and the car ride home, and we all see these things, right? The memes of like, the having to drive home with dad after having a bad outing on the mound, and it's just a kid is just in tears and the dad's just ripping them. Like, it drives me crazy when I see that, when I see parents at events just getting on these kids, and it's like, and for the most part, they're never, I've yet to see a parent who has played at a decent level of a sport, whether it's Division One or any, not be realistic with their kid. It's always the other parents that have never had the experience,
right?
maybe living vicariously through that kid. But like, you see that a lot, like in Pop Warner and stuff, just, like kids in the NFL or something. You're like, you don't even understand, but it's like, if I didn't in 10th grade, I would have played JV, like there's a lot, there's that whole thing. But it's like, I think the people that have gone and, have the appreciation for any kind of level of football or baseball or volleyball or whatever, track, like, you understand what it takes and how hard it is. So I think when you have kids, you're a little more aware, right, of like what's realistic, their expectations, and then also what's realistic in their expectations. You could see, like, we'll be able to see with his boys, like, hey, what's the potential here? What's the role here? How far can we get? Potentially with the skills that they have, and I think that's helpful if the parent can have that kind of mindset and awareness, like selfness, I guess.
Yeah. I think, what comes up for me, or just my reaction, is that both of you are speaking very much on focusing on the process as opposed to the outcome of things. It's not about the let's say the objective numbers, whether it's, how many stolen bases, or, how many kills you had, or how many did whatever it's, what was your body language like, were you a good team, did you give your best effort? Like, that's the more of the win. But
Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot of almost cliches to it, right? Sometimes when you
yes.
start talking about those things, you start to feel like, oh man, am I turning into my dad here? Like, what's happening? But yeah, it's that though, right?
Yeah.
It really is. It's like, just understanding, what you're capable. Like, the self-awareness part, I think, is big. And like, what are your expectations? Let's talk about those, and that's healthy, I think.
Well, gentlemen, I can't thank you enough. I have a bunch more questions, but I know we will hopefully do this again. For those of you, please look to follow both of these great coaches on the various social media outlets. It is at Coach Dose, and then Will Fleming on both of, both Facebook, Instagram, there's Twitter. So I thank you both so much for your time and your insight today. I had a great time myself, and I hope you guys did as well. So thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us, man.
You bet. All right. Have a great rest of the day.
You too.
All right.